President Trump is always doing his very strong statements regarding Russia, regarding Ukraine lately, and sometimes it's Ukrainians see at this quite, it's surprising Ukrainians. So my question to you: recently he knocked Russian dictator Putin for not doing any success in the war in Ukraine for almost 4 years. Do you think it's something personal between Trump and Putin, or it's a serious political shift in his behavior?
I think it's an evolution of President Trump's understanding and view of the Ukraine war. And I think it stems from the fact that he made a lot of statements during the campaign before he had been fully briefed and had a full and complete understanding of the causes of the war in Ukraine. And I think it's also the result of frustration by President Trump, who had more confidence in Putin than almost anyone around the world. He believed, I think, that Putin wanted peace, even though most keen observers did not believe that Putin wants peace. And there's abundant evidence that Putin wasn't really serious about having a peace deal. But I think Trump has now recognized that. And so he's both trying to put in place some measures to coerce Putin to perhaps go to the bargaining table in good faith and to put out there the potential threats of what could happen if Putin does not do that. And so that's what's happening right now. But I also would caution everyone to recognize that President Trump often changes his mind. So right now he seems very positive about President Zelensky and Ukraine, and that's based on recent meetings and conversations. But it could change, of course, and we have to be ready for that.
Oh, yes, David, we always keeping that in mind. So, yeah, and just regarding Trump's evolution in his vision of a Russian war in Ukraine, President Zelensky, he was dictator, now he's not a dictator. So just a question regarding his recent decision that he now authorized Ukraine to strike deep into Russia and the decision of supplying Tomahawk. We don't see them, right? This is uncertain so far, but how do you evaluate these moves of the American president?
Well, I think this has happened for a couple of reasons. First of all, Ukraine and the Ukrainian armed forces have very adeptly demonstrated how striking further into Russia, striking at headquarters of the military and warehouses where there are weapons and equipment, and hitting their supply chain and hitting their oil facilities, is actually having an impact in a positive way for Ukraine and positive way for Europe. And so it's changing the nature of the war, and it's giving Ukraine more leverage. And so I think the Trump administration, watching that and getting intelligence reports about it, say, okay, well, maybe we should help them do even more of this, because that could be a game changer. So the consideration of providing Tomahawks, which can go as 5 to 10 times as far into Russia as the other weapons we've given so far, is intended to provide Ukraine with the strategic and military capacity to hit Russia even harder where it really hurts for Russia. As President Zelensky said, though, if Ukraine gets Tomahawk missiles, they may not even use them. Just having them is a threat to Russia that could help move things forward with a potential ceasefire.
Yeah, absolutely true. And speaking about the possibility of the United States to persuade all European countries to stop buying Russian oil, we see some countries like Slovakia, Hungary, of course, they do not want to do that. Do you think that United States somehow is capable to persuade them to do that?
Well, if anyone is capable, you would think it would be President Trump, because he has a good relationship with the leaders of those two countries, Hungary and Slovakia. They are more right-wing leaders who have a little bit more affinity for Russia than the rest of the European leaders. And so they have, some things in common with President Trump as well. And so that's probably why he's targeted that as a basis. But I think others, critics, might say, okay, is he just using that as an excuse? He says he wants to do sanctions, but then he's coming up with an excuse not to do new sanctions, saying first Europe has to give up on buying all oil from Russia. But President Trump is right. No country in Europe should be buying oil from Russia. But at the same time, the reality is, since the invasion in February 2022, many countries in Europe that were buying oil and gas from Russia have ceased to do so. It's only these two outliers, Hungary and Slovakia.
Absolutely true, David. I recently opened the data, and what country was the leader of buying Russian gas in June? It was Belgium. So it's just, it's I can relate on that, and I can agree that it's kind of unfair, basically. So, and I was just reading the statement from Estonian president, and he believed that Donald Trump is tired of endless talks with Dictator Putin. Do you see that in this way?
I think President Trump is frustrated. Remember, he made a campaign promise that he would end the Ukraine war, and he would do it in a day. Now, I think everyone recognized it wasn't going to be able to be done in a day, but I think he feels frustrated 9 months into his administration that no progress has been made on a ceasefire, and it reveals what a lot of close watchers understood, which is Putin doesn't want a ceasefire right now. He doesn't want peace. He still has objectives he intends to try to accomplish in Ukraine, and until he's met with even further force and more sanctions and more hardship to his economy, he's likely not going to bend and make the compromises necessary for there to be a ceasefire that would meet the aspirations of the Ukrainian people.
And David, the last one, actually speaking about the personal meeting of Ukrainian president and Russian dictator Putin, do you think it's possible with the involvement of American president, and do you think it's really necessary?
For Zelensky and Putin to deal with each other directly?
Yes.
I mean, I think to actually have a real ceasefire that would actually hold and that Russia would not violate, it is going to require some diplomacy directly between Ukraine and Russia, because only the leaders of Ukraine and Russia actually understand what is necessary for there to be a ceasefire and for the ceasefire to hold. I do think President Trump would likely be the person in the room with them. He is in a good place to try to push together the two leaders from Russia and Ukraine. And Ukraine obviously is a very close ally of the United States, and Russia not a close ally of the United States, but there's a friendship between Trump and Putin that he could try to utilize in order to accomplish a ceasefire.
David, thank you so much for being with me today. It was a great pleasure speaking with you, and I hope it's not going to be our last time speaking together.
Me too. Slava Ukraini.
Героям слава!